everyone. My name is Elizabeth Pitel. I'm a middle school instructional technology specialist from the Washington Township School District down in Gloucester County. In addition to supporting teachers every day as we go through these challenges of implementing remote learning, I'm also a teacher of computer and financial literacy to students. So I see this from all different angles and sides. And I'm really excited to share with you today a topic about blended learning strategies you can use in remote learning and face-to-face settings. The session objectives are to examine strategies and best practices of blended learning for both remote learning and in-school settings. We'll talk a little bit more about what this means later. Our next objective is to describe how instructional technology tools fit into blended learning, and we're going to take a look at some specific examples. Our last objective is to discuss strategies for helping students succeed in blended learning models. So I'm going to start right off the bat and just remind everyone that blended learning is not the same thing as online learning. All right? There are some pretty particular things that make blended learning blended learning. Online learning is a part of blended learning. We aren't going to spend a whole lot of time talking about this, but there are 4 different types of blended learning. If you want to learn more about blended learning, I really recommend that you take a look at the Christensen Institute. I'll put this link inside a folder that I'm going to share with you guys in a minute. But I wanted to point out there's all sorts of resources available for you about blended learning if you really want to learn more about the different types and what we really mean when we say blended learning. What all of these have in common, though, is that blended learning is a formal education program where a student learns partially online, like we're doing now in a remote learning setting, and partially in school in their traditional brick and mortar location. So that's the 2 pieces blending together. All right, some of the things to think about this are, in order for it to be blended learning, the student has to have some sort of control over the situation, whether it be the pace of the lesson, the time or location they access the materials, the path they take to get from one end to another. Those are all different elements of what makes up blended learning. So we're combining together online learning, in-school learning, with student choice and flexibility in terms of how they access and work through the online materials and in-class materials. So the good news about all that is these strategies are good for all settings, whether we're talking about face-to-face, where you normally go into school and you're in a brick and mortar location, or if we're talking about remote learning. So these strategies that we're going to apply today, let us look at the one side of the coin. There's a lot of benefits to blended learning. First, more meaningful time when you're with the teacher. So a lot of the activities that we do online separately open us up to have more meaningful teacher time. Video can be used for lecture and direct instruction. Students have the ability to work at their own pace. We have more options for students to differentiate. Again, pace, time, location, modality, all those things are up in the air. More opportunities for critical thinking, and it's more student active than it is passive. All right, but before we go any further, I want to direct you to our resource folder. Take a look. Here's all the information. You're going to go to this link, this bit.ly link, or you're going to use your phone and you're going to scan the image with your phone, and it's going to take you to a folder. And there's some great things inside the folder. But we have some subfolders labeled out there. We have some resources in here. So I want you to pause. I want you to get yourself to that folder, and I want you to make sure you can get your hands on some of these resources. And once you find the folder and kind of gotten to just kind of peek around a little bit, come on back. Okay, so one of the things we want to start with is talking about students. I spend a lot of time working with middle school students. I actually live with middle school students. I have a 12-year-old and a 14-year-old, which kind of puts me right in the sweet spot of really understanding what's happening here. And we all assume that our kids are really tech savvy right now. But just because they're tech savvy doesn't make them tech savvy learners. There's still skill sets we have to teach these kids. We have to help them get through a blended learning situation and a virtual learning situation for that matter. We're going to take a look at the flip side of the coin, and we're going to take a look at how we can build online skills and independent skills. So we're going to talk about some best practices to make that happen. What's the game plan? 4 things. 4 things. Number 1, how are we going to organize our materials to provide access for students? All right, how are we going to get them access? Today, for this kind of lesson, I gave you access to a folder. All right, and that was kind of a simple thing to do, to give you a folder with all those resources. But you might have different methods, and there might be better ways of doing it for your students' work. So we're going to come back to that. Number 2, how are we going to help students organize themselves? This is something we've been overlooking a lot, and it's something we really need to talk about. Number 3, how are you going to assess students? The plan for assessment is going to be different. Okay, it's something we have to think about. And number 4, how are we going to allow for students to collaborate and communicate? So these are kind of the goals, and this is part of the big game plan, and this is where we want to go. And so that's kind of how we're going to work through the rest of this video. Now, having said that, I also want to mention we're going to talk about a bunch of ed tech tools as we hit each one of these. I selected these for a variety of reasons, but mainly 2 criteria. Are they free? Are they easy to use? All right, because if they're not free and they're not easy to use, well, then we're going to struggle a little. I know we don't all have access to the same things. I know that our districts provide us with different things and we use different tools. So I purposely selected ones that I know can be accessible by everyone. And don't require the students to do a lot of heavy lifting on their end, because that's the other piece of this. I know a lot of us, our students, are working off of subpar conditions. So these kind of are some resources I selected. Free, easy for the staff, easy for the student. So let's talk about some other ideas for access. The question is how. Big question, how? How are we going to do this? How are we going to get students access? How are they going to be able to find things easily? That's the key. What is your current strategy? Do you share folders of information like what we just did? Do you use Google Classroom? Do you have a learning management system like Canvas? What do you use? If nothing else, you could create something like we just did, share a link to a folder. All right, but there's lots of different ways. But what's really important is that we stop and we organize ourselves, and that we make sure we're giving it to them in a way that they can find it without a lot of instruction. Right, because at school, I'm sure you all know these kids, right? I live with one of them. All right, you have to constantly remind them where to put things away, where things go. Well, now imagine this tenfold. You're not right there to remind them and help them and support them with this. And just like we need procedures for the classroom, we're also going to need procedures help monitor and get them through their work and find the resources. We want them to be able to keep track of what they're doing as well. Every day, I actually sit down with my one son and I make a list. We go through the list, we check things off, we go back. Did you do this? Where did you put this? Let me see this. But I know not all students have that level of support. So how can we teach them these skills? How can we get them to plan out their day? How can we get them to go back and revisit everything? And are we providing time for reflection for them to go back and review their learning? Well, my big thing, my favorite strategy for this is checklists. I love checklists. Checklists save my life. I have so many things going on in my head all the time. Checklists are how I get things done. So now, I have for you a little thing on Flipgrid. One of the things in the folder was a Flipgrid, and on the Flipgrid, one of the topics is talking about organization. And you'll see in there, if you go to that Flipgrid, pause the video, go to that Flipgrid, watch it. You can hear me talking about checklists a little bit more and why they're important to me. Checklists are my jam. I'm really excited about them. So we're going to talk about 2 of the tools in a second when you come back, but I would encourage you to pause, go out to the Flipgrid, and come back. But if you want to go to the Flipgrid later and do that, that's okay too, because you have control over the pace and the timing and how you're going to get through these materials. Blended learning, right? So if you want to pause, go ahead, pause. If you're going to stick with us, we're going to go ahead and talk about my top 2 tools that I love for checklists. Number 1, Google Keep. If you never use Google Keep, I really recommend it. It goes on phones, it goes on tablets, it goes on your browser. It's really easy to use. We get post-it style notes that pop up. We can save things quick on the go. I can see something on my phone and go, oh, put that in Google Keep for me later. I do my weekly menu in there. I do all my chores that I have to do, my list of appointments. I can set reminders. So if I'm like, oh, I need to remember to do this later when I get home tonight, go through this list, the list will pop up with a reminder on it. I can do voice memos, all those things, and it syncs across all your devices, which is really great for me because sometimes I'm on my laptop, sometimes I'm on my tablet, sometimes I'm on my phone. So that's really great. And I get to check the little boxes. You guys, I love checking off boxes and they cross out. Oh, and I love that. It makes me feel like I'm accomplishing something. Sometimes I just put small things on the list because I like to check them off. But if you have a Google account, you have Google Keep. So I have some examples of this. If you go into the folder, there's a subfolder called Checklist. If you go in there, there's a document that shows you about Google Keep and how that works. So really exciting. Check that out. You can get an app for your phones, for your tablets, and like I said, it works in the browser. Highly recommend Google Keep. If you didn't get a chance to pause and go check that out and you want to, pause, go do that, come on back. All right, next on the checklist list, one of my favorites for organizing myself at work is OneNote. I put in here a starter notebook in the folder that's got its own link inside the folder, no subfolder. Go check that out if you want to take a look at any point while we're talking. Pause and go do that. But what's great about OneNote, I put some sample checklists in there to check out. You can put in drawings, you can put in links, audio and video. You can even share your notebook with Collaborator, which means, oh my gosh, you could even have group checklists. That's like really cool to me. So you can see there's a sample of what a group checklist might look like. You can make templates for kids and share them that they can upload. And what's great about OneNote is they have these drawing tools that they can go in while you're in there. If you want to go up to the drawing tool and draw in there, that's great. So you can cross things off. And again, they have the check boxes and it crosses stuff off. I also put in there something about reflecting and going back and thinking about strategies to give kids a place just to do some simple reflection on a regular basis. So I gave some examples using some stars, using some charts and some stickers, but you can kind of get the idea that they can come in, if they have a place to come in here and self-evaluate or reflect or keep track of their learning. It might be another way for us to kind of ask to see, hey, where are you on your list? Have you organized yourself? How are things going? And help them develop the skill set a little bit more so that they can do these kind of things independently. All right, so if you didn't get a chance to look at the OneNote, you can do that later. You can do that now. But some of you might be saying, that's still a little too fancy for me. Having these extra tools that are new to me, I don't love that. Don't worry. You can make simple checklists for kids in Docs and Word and share them. So in that checklist folder, in the folder I gave you, there's some design samples, some really basic, simple templates you can share with some kids. A 3-column template, giving them the task, giving them a progress column and a completed column. Just something to think about. And those are things that they could actually share with you. Okay, for you to reflect on and go back, or that they can keep to themselves, depending on how you want to set this up. But shared checklists really have helped out a lot of our kids with special needs. Having teachers that can go in and check on their checklists and leave notes for them, leave links for them, put in little support videos, which we'll talk about more in a minute. But all these things really kind of make a checklist so much better than a paper checklist. We can have paper checklists everywhere, but we can't put a video in a paper checklist. We can't leave an audio note in a paper checklist. We can't collaborate between homes on a paper checklist. So go pause on the table, go look in the folder, check out some ideas for that. We also want to hear from you. So if you have some ways that you help organize students, in the OneNote notebook, there's a link to a page where it says our list, organizing students. Share with us what kind of strategies and tools do you use to help organize kids independently? And we'll have access to that as long as we have the folder. So I really encourage you, go in and add to the list. I would love to see what you guys all use. All right, now I know we were just talking about this, so I want to circle back to my next idea. I really am a huge supporter of giving students video and audio support. One of my biggest complaints from kids is when we're giving them a lot of text, we're not providing with them audio support or video support. And those kids that really struggle with reading or language, this is a huge barrier for them. So I really encourage people to get invested in making your own videos. All right, so 2 great tools for making screencast. Screencast-O-Matic, okay, which is my all-time, hands-down favorite. That's what I'm using right now. Screen recording tool. You can record yourself. You can record your screen. You can do both. And the reason why it's my hands-down favorite tool for this is because it hosts in the cloud. I can download it to my computer. I can put it on YouTube. I can put it in their free online storage. Now, I went and bought the video editor software, which is how I'm doing some of these other things today with the pop-ups of the graphics, and you can do some editing. It was so reasonable that for me it was $18 a year was worth the investment for me to have that. But you don't need all that. You can do it. Just make little videos and share them with kids, and you don't have to be perfect, and they don't have to be masterpieces. It's just you. It's just you talking, and that's what they're used to hearing, and you don't say everything perfect when you're with them face to face, so your videos don't have to be perfect. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Make them short, make them sweet, show things, explain things. Now, another great tool, and we're going to keep talking about it throughout this whole presentation, Flipgrid. Flipgrid has screencast abilities now, which is a great tool. If you've never seen Flipgrid with its screencasting, whole new ballgame. I mean, they've just really taken and busted out the walls on what's possible here. So we can add in screencasts to Flipgrid. That allows you to have kids not just share by talking, but share screens, and for you to share screens back and forth. Super great. Really check it out. Now, here's where I'm going to tell you to pause again, go back into the folder, go back to the Flipgrid. You'll see there's a Flipgrid about my favorite tech tool. It's Screencast-O-Matic, just like I said. And hey, see what I did there? I used our two screencasting tools together, my favorite tech tool inside of another awesome tech tool. All right, App Smash, App Smash. So that's kind of, take a look at that, pause and go, and feel free to reply back, share with us. And then come on back here. All right, next up in the plan, assessing students. Okay, the hardest thing I think about blended learning is analyzing this thought accurately and properly. How often am I going to assess my students, and how am I going to do it? You need to do it frequently enough to make sure that the students are on target with their content and that they're working towards their goals. But, huge but, if you assess them too much, you're just going to burn out yourself and your students. So how do we handle this? So in a normal blended learning setting, we would spend some time face-to-face with students. And during that time, we would allow for some dialogue back and forth, and we'd allow to observe them. And that would help us work towards our assessment of our students. So now we're left with the question, how do I replace that in the remote setting? And how do I enable myself, free myself up to gather more data without spending too much time looking one-on-one with students? So the first way we're going to talk about doing this is through video. So not just when students watch videos, we're able to gather some data about them and gather assessments. And those videos could be you, they could be other people. It doesn't really matter. Now, I have a nickname for this generation of students that my middle school students are in. I like to call them the YouTube generation. I've never seen anything like it. YouTube is all we watch. We don't watch anything broadcast. They don't watch Netflix. They don't watch movies. They watch YouTube. And not only do they just watch YouTube, YouTube's their search engine. Okay, we Google stuff, they YouTube it. It's very fascinating. But just because they watch hundreds and hundreds of YouTube videos a month doesn't mean they know how to watch it for educational purposes. Okay, they don't go back and pause and reflect. They don't stop and take notes. I live with a 14 and a 12-year-old. I've never seen them pause or rewind a YouTube video. They just watch it. I go, cool. Next video comes up. Next video. Cool. All right. So we have to give them some strategies and supports for this, or that's what they're just going to do. I'm sure you've heard of one of these two tools, Edpuzzle and PlayPosit. If you're going to give them a video, no matter how short, I really, really recommend that you think about embedding some of these tools with them. Giving them even just pauses. Now that's something that we don't think about a lot, but that's a feature that you can do with these. You can just give them a pause, a stop and think minute. Okay, because with the video, we go from one idea to the next idea to the next idea. And I've done this throughout the video a lot. Building in pauses not only to do things, but just to stop and think a little bit. And then you have the ability to add questions, which of course gives us data and gives them time to reflect and really target and think about certain things. And we want to make sure we're doing more than just giving them recall questions. We want to make sure we're giving them thinker questions too. Stuff that really kind of challenges, did you understand what was happening here, more so than just recall. So if you haven't heard of one or the other, they're both the same kind of thing. They take videos, they allow you to embed in questions, pauses, text, and you can do some small edits, and then you can share them with students. That data comes back to you, and that's really important too. So that's one way we can assess students. All right, and if you rather, we can also talk about how you can embed a video in a PowerPoint or Google slide, and then put an area for notes on the side next to that. So I have some examples of what that could look like. So I have some things I want you to go check out in the folder. Number one, there is a folder in the Blended Learning Training Materials folder called Organizing Videos. If you go to the Organizing Videos folder, you can see there is a link to a sample slide where we can see we have the video on the side and a place where students can take notes next to it. There's also a spot for that in OneNote. So if you go to OneNote, you can take a look at that there. We can use OneNote in that same way. So some things to check out there. I also have in the folder a link to a Wakelet, because we have all these videos we give to these kids. Okay, we give them puzzles, we give them play posits, we make our own videos. And then what? We've got all these videos all over the place. So what I did is I took a bunch of videos and I put them in a tool called Wakelet. So you can kind of see, that's one way we could think about organizing our videos. Okay, we can put them in folders. If you're using Edpuzzle and PlayPosit, you can go get the preview links of them. And that's actually important. We want the kids to have a place to go back and reflect back on some of their learning and some of the things that have been said. What's great about the PowerPoint example is that we've provided students a place where they can have notes with their videos that they can keep with you. So if you have the Google slide with the video next to it, they can take that with you. So you can see that here. That's all in the folder. Go take a look at all that stuff, the Wakelet collection. There's a doc inside the folder for organizing videos, asking you to share suggestions. It's an open doc, so if you have a great way that you like to share videos with students, go there and add that in. We'd love to hear what you have to say. So pause, go do all that, and then come back. All right, next thing, we're still talking about assessment, but guess what just came back into assessment? Flipgrid, that amazing tool Flipgrid. Students can share their thoughts, either confessional style, like think reality in the moment style, where they're like sitting there on camera talking to you, hey, this is how I was feeling, this is what I was doing. And if you sell it to the kids, like, oh, you're going to do an ITM on this? Oh my goodness, they would actually go do it, I think. But the other thing they can do, like I said, is screencasts. They can upload their screencasts. Which is great because they can give you a tour of what they've done. They can read through and present their finished work. They can do self-reflection journals. And here's a little hint. If you moderate those boards, if you moderate your Flipgrid, then that just becomes between you and the student, which is really nice. So it's not like you don't have to worry about like, oh, they're reflecting on the learning and some kids are going to come along and be like, what? No, you are moderating it. Then it's between the two of you. So super, super great. If you have math problems or a bunch of drawings you want to share, they could sketch them out in a Google Drawing or in OneNote or using one of the whiteboard tools. Microsoft has an interactive whiteboard. You can get it for free in the Windows 10 store if you have a laptop device. If you're using a Chrome device or an iPad, you could get the Jamboard app, for example, and install that on any of your devices. It's the same thing that works with the actual Jamboard, but you can use it, without it on their screens. So some great ideas. Flipgrid also has the ability for the kids to put in like a whiteboard or a blackboard background so they can type on it, they can draw on it and do their work right in there. So that actually makes Flipgrid really, really appealing. So imagine they could pull up the blackboard, they could pull out a marker, they could write you a little something kind of like this as they explain the problem or they explain the situation or they explain what they've created. Now we're getting a lot of that face-to-face conferencing in a setting without eating up a whole lot of classroom time if you're back at school or without the extra struggle of you being apart. Okay, this is a great segue into the fourth plan of the step, which is collaborate and communicate. Here comes Flipgrid again. Flipgrid, back at it. Number one tool for collaboration and communication, especially in a setting where you're separated. It really was designed as a social learning tool. And that kind of is appealing right there. we can have students ask each other questions and allow them to have conversations back and forth, face-to-face conversations at that. If you have kids that are really struggling with the lack of social interaction and remote times, this gives them a little something, a little bit of face-to-face with each other. You can encourage students to teach a concept to other students. You can have students share their presentations they've made. You can allow students to ask each other questions. So that's really a great tool. Again, Flipgrid high on the collaboration list. Next, Padlet. Padlet is another great tool for sharing and collaborating. So I've got a couple of sample Padlets in the folder. We've got a Padlet for collaboration in addition to the one for organization, okay, because that tool, Padlet, actually works in both areas, okay, because Padlet not only is a collaboration place, it's also an organization tool, so we're kind of combining that together. But if you go to the Padlet for collaboration tool, which is what we're talking about, you can see you have the board. You can have kids go in and add stickies and post their questions. They could have brainstorming sessions. They can do all sorts of things here working together. And I really would like it if you guys threw some things on these Padlet boards and share. So, hey, we're kind of practicing what we're preaching a little bit. Pause this, go in and go to the Padlet for collaboration and share some ideas or take a look at those things. And we'd love to hear from you. We can kind of work together and collaborate. You'll notice that Padlet has the ability to add in video, audio, drawings, links. So again, this is a really great way for students to have some flexibility with how they're sharing. As a teacher, if you've never used Padlet, you have the ability to moderate these posts, which a lot of teachers really appreciate. Okay, so if you haven't taken a look at the Padlet yet, go do that. Go to Padlet now. Come on back when you're done. So remember, throughout this process, we're looking to provide students with support. We're looking to help them keep organized. So no matter what we're doing, try to give them checkpoints, especially remember while they're watching videos, while they're listening to new tasks. Try to encourage them to use checklists, model the behavior of them, give them some supports. Provide them some opportunities for self-assessment. Try sharing docs. And I'm also going to talk real quickly about a piece of exit ticket software. If you've never used this, what's great about exit ticket software, it's great for great little checks, great little short answer, super easy to set up, accessible by any kind of device, free accounts, and it gives you a quick understanding. Do students know what's happening? Even if it's just a quick way to check in, like, hey, did you guys come here today? Did you look at this? What did you think? Really fast, easy for you to analyze the data. It happens real and live. So remember, we're trying to give students supports. We're looking to give them checkpoints while they're watching their videos, while they're reading their docs. We're trying to give them support to help set up their tasks. We're trying to provide some self-assessment opportunities as well as some face-to-face time with us, using a whole bunch of these different tools. We're trying to encourage collaboration and communication. I really appreciate all the time that you guys have given us. I really hope that you got something out of this. Happy Teacher Appreciation Week, and thanks to all the educators out there for what you're doing everywhere. Special shout out to the teachers of Washington Township School District, Kingsway School District, where my children are, and we really appreciate everyone's support and how hardworking everyone's been. Thanks so much, everybody.